We've been at SEC Media Days. We'll be here all week. I wanted to tell you just a few things, some of the buzz I've picked up on around here. We talked to a lot of coaches, a lot of administrative types. The Texas fatigue is insane. It's legitimately insane. We're in the state of Texas. Sark and Texas, as we're talking with each other here Tuesday night, they haven't even come yet. They haven't even shown up yet. And everyone's asking questions about Texas. Everyone wants to talk about Texas. Every radio hit I've done, in the big media room, every coach, all they've been asked about is Texas. So what I'm trying to tell you Texas haters is, I get it. I'm not among you, but I get it. Because if that's what it's really like, if that's what life has really been like in the Big 12 forever, if that's what life in this state for a non-Texas fan has been like, okay, I will grant you that. You got reason to feel the way you do. I gave the most boring answers possible today because I had the Texas sucks crowd, and I had to say, well, they clearly don't suck. They went to the playoff last year. Their over-under win total's 10.5 in the SEC. They clearly don't suck. And then I got this other crowd that says, Sark, he's less than a god, but he's certainly much more than a man. And I'm like, let's pump the brakes on that front as well. Texas, I think, could accurately be described as a really good program, probably still trending up. Probably haven't hit their ceiling yet. It's a treacherous thing, though. There's a tightrope walk that has to be accomplished by them. There's a unique pressure that's on Texas. They move from the Big 12 to the SEC, and that does carry a lot of weight with it. Make no mistake. It's still a tightrope walk. It's just the difference in walking a tightrope 10 feet off the ground versus 10 stories off the ground. Technically, nothing changes. Technically, the way you walk a tightrope 10 feet off the ground is the same way you walk a tightrope 10 stories off the ground. Difference being, everyone knows you can fall when you're 10 feet off the ground. It may hurt, you may sprain your ankle, but you can get up and climb right back up the ladder and try again. That was life in the Big 12. You fall from 100 feet, you fall from 10 stories up, you're street pizza, you're done. And it's not that they can't afford to lose, per se, but the level of play collectively, like I have got a question one of you gave me later in the show about Sark and Texas. How will they look when they just face quality competition more frequently? That's totally fair. Totally fair. They haven't even come through here yet, though. In Dallas, they're a Wednesday team, day 3 team, and the Texas fatigue has already set in. Tennessee, total wild card team. Even their folks will tell you behind the scenes, as they did in the spring when we were in Knoxville and did the show there, it's like, we know what we've got physically in Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback. We know what we've got. Or at least we're pretty sure we know what we got. However, there's this million-dollar question always with a first-year starter at quarterback. How does he process? How does he just deal with that spotlight? Is he just a player on the team, or is it his team? And they really believe Nico Iamaleava is that kind of guy. And they weren't shy about saying that. In fact, talking to Heupel before we sat down with him, and I talked to him again today, he's like, look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I think I know a fair amount about this kind of thing. He's our guy, and we're comfortable riding with him. We're comfortable giving him the keys to the offense. It's a lot to say. About a first-year starter, it's a lot to say. You want to do a fun little exercise that lets you know how rare it is. If they're right about him, how rare that is, do this. Go find the former 5-star rated quarterbacks. Just look around the country. Find the guys who were rated 5 stars out of high school. Tell me how many of them have played a season of 5-star caliber football. The list is not long. And I'm not hating on our rankings council. In fact, I don't think they whiffed on these guys. I just think it's that hard. It's that hard to play that position at that level. So if they get that from him this year, Tennessee's not some cute story that could exist on the fringes of playoff contention. If you answer that question, then they're a prime contender. You don't have a whole lot of elite quarterback play. It's not a thing that happens a whole lot. And you can name me exceptions to the rule, and I'll say that's just what they are, exceptions to the rule. Kirby Smart, I think a lot of people assumed, was going to be the face of the SEC. Once Nick Saban retired, you just naturally say, all right, well, who's the next biggest name? Who's the next best? What's the next biggest program? Well, the answer is Kirby in Georgia. Okay, so then the follow-up is, well, Saban used to be the guy everyone turned to. When there was a question, there's this existential threat to the sport. The portal's changing. Let's go ask Nick what he thinks. Oh, man, look what NIL's doing. Let's ask Nick what he thinks. Well, now he's the one asking questions, which is a surreal scene, by the way. watching Nick Saban ask Brian Kelly questions the other day, for example. Crazy. Be that as it may, that's his new job. And so you've got a ton of oxygen in the room. This stuff matters beyond the SEC, but even in the SEC, I don't think Kirby Smart is the kind of guy who's just dying to grab that mantle. When we had him on the show, you remember we went up to Athens or down to Athens, we sat face to face with him. I said, face of the SEC, face of college football, used to be Nick Saban. He's stepped aside now, he's doing media. Like, is that you? And he said, I don't know if you just assume that. No one assumes that role. It's probably a multiple person shared responsibility, but you got to earn that. He earned it over decades, not a couple of years. So Kirby's not that right now. And you can feel they don't have that in the sport right now. Kirby's probably as close as we have to it. I know Kirby Smart is very influential, in like the rules committee and whatnot. He's very vocal there. He should be. He's very knowledgeable, one of the foremost authorities on the game at the head coaching level today, or in general, not just today. But the face of the SEC is really interesting. I don't know that it matters on a Saturday in general, but it's interesting. Shane Beamer was in here yesterday. I always love being around South Carolina this time of year because they are excellent at showcasing themselves. They're excellent at creating hype. Now, in the past, I've just had fun with that, and then I've been ridiculed on the show because you accuse me of buying into South Carolina hype, and then they lose games in the fall, and then you were wrong. That's what they tell me. You were wrong. Well, I haven't even made a prediction on South Carolina. I will do that soon. However, your point has been taken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to acknowledge South Carolina, the momentum feels great. The energy feels great around the program. Then you pause. However, other places probably have some pretty good energy of their own right now. Other places probably have some pretty good momentum. No one feels bad about their trajectory in July. Let me put it that way. Nobody's creative media department is struggling for content in July. Let me put it that way. And so we look at our FanDuel odds, and man, they're playing 7 of the top 20 teams in the country this year. Preseason odds to win it all. So you could be a pretty good team. You could be pretty motivated. Still get beat on Saturdays, which means the questions will ultimately be on the field. It's not how motivated you are. It's not how together you are. Those things matter, but you're going to win close games? Are your games going to be close? Are you going to be able to depend on that offensive line? Are you going to have a quarterback that you really can lean on like you think you can? These sorts of things weighing on my mind heavily as we try and gauge South Carolina. And then at LSU, I talked to a ton of LSU media yesterday, and I noticed this trend, which was kind of weird because I don't feel this way. They almost had accepted the default that since the defense was so bad last year, and since they didn't make a ton of personnel moves, they made a ton of coaching moves, but not a ton of personnel moves, then maybe the bar should be lowered just a little bit. No, it shouldn't. That's LSU. No, it shouldn't. You ought to be disgusted at what last year brought you, which was a Heisman Trophy quarterback and a 9-3 year in the regular season because your defense sucked. But that shouldn't be what's accepted at LSU. Now, I've got my doubts about how improved the defense can be. I think it will be better. How much it's improved, I don't know. But this is not some window program. This is not LSU where you got to say, all right, well, if we're really good at recruiting, if we're really careful, maybe a couple of years from now we can contend. It's every year there. You ought to be contending and competing for it all every year there. And that's not the energy Brian Kelly gave all. Kelly's all about it. He's all in. But some of the media around LSU, unless I'm missing my mark, and I talked to several of them, were almost like, 9.5 over-under win total. But I mean, 8-4, 9-3, like that's pretty good. Really? I got plenty of LSU folks watching the show. Really? Your program, not mine. Is that how you feel?